So I'm going to go through 10 of the best fat loss hacks that I've developed and learned, I should say, I've gathered over the last 8 years of coaching people on this. And I have some bonus ones in here as well if we get to them. But I have 10 of them and I want to go through them here. I've been coaching for 8 years now, full time, helping people lose fat, build muscle, fit back into clothes from college, change their lives. That is the goal anyway. And that is what I help people do. And it's pretty freaking awesome. I've been doing that for the last 8 years. Over that amount of time, I have developed through trial and error many different methods, processes, tips, strategies, hacks, if you will, to help people do these things. And I think a lot of people with stuff like this all over the internet, people are always looking for that next thing that'll help them. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think ultimately it's a lot simpler than people think. But at the same time, sometimes you do stumble across something that you didn't know was going to help. You implement it, and all of a sudden you're on that trajectory that you were looking for. So I'm going to go through 10 of the best fat loss hacks that I've developed and learned, I should say, I've gathered over the last 8 years of coaching people on this. And I have some bonus ones in here as well if we get to them. But I have 10 of them and I want to go through them here. They're very actionable. They're super simple. They're very clear. They're also very basic. And sometimes when people hear basic, they think it's less effective. I think humans in general have this idea of like more complicated means better. Not necessarily. In fact, if it's more complicated, you're probably less likely to do it, therefore making it actually pretty useless. So I make these simple, actionable, and very basic so that you're more likely to do them because ultimately these work very, very well only if you do them. You have to actually do them for them to see them actually work. So if you are starting from scratch, if you're a beginner, if you're restarting from scratch, and you're like, I don't know where to start, I'm going to give you these 10. You could pick 5 of them and start from there. You could pick 2 or 3 of them and start from there. You could pick all 10 if that's not overwhelming for you, and you could go from there as well. But regardless of however many you choose to implement into your life, I would highly recommend you write these out and be very clear on what they are. And you can kind of add to them or tweak them based on your own lifestyle and your own goals. But regardless, I think you need clarity with these to move forward. I already have, when I've laid these out, I've already made them quite clear. But that doesn't mean they're clear to you. So it's important that you have clarity with that. So the ones that kind of jive with you, the ones that resonate with you, make sure that you do write it out and you get that clarity that you need to move forward. Because if it's clear, you have a good idea about it, you have exactly an exact picture of what you need to achieve and to actually to put into action, then you're more likely to do it. If it's too vague, it's too mysterious and whimsical, you're not gonna be able to get your hands on it and actually be consistent with it. Because that's the number one game here. You got to be actually consistent. That is the game. So let's go through them here. I got them on my phone. So the first of these 10 fat loss hacks that I have picked up through trial and error over the last 8 years of working with people on this is every 15 minutes of moving makes fat loss more likely. So start somewhere and do it every single day. So that being said, the start there, every 15 minutes of moving makes fat loss more likely. Knowing that, really it's like any more movement, but I arbitrarily chose 15 minutes because that's a very achievable number. You could say 10 minutes if you want, but something that isn't intimidating because a lot of people think like, okay, I want to lose fat. I got to do a ton of cardio. I got to go to the gym and do crazy workouts. None of that's actually true. You don't need any of those, but you do need to move more. And walking can be a great way to do that. I utilize and leverage walking with every single one of my clients. And if you start with 15 minutes a day more than what you normally do, that's a great start. Start there. Start with 10 minutes even. and then go up from there. If you're able to do 20 minutes or 30 minutes, that's going to give you even better chances. But the point is that you understand that a little bit more every 5, 10, 15-minute increment of moving more than you usually do is going to give you a better chance of losing fat. And just make sure that you do that frequently and you do that regularly. I would recommend doing that every single day. There's no reason, no matter how busy you are, that you can't implement that or integrate that into your day. Number 2, do not eat or drink anything after dinner 5 days per week. I like 5 days per week because that allows the other 2 days to maybe leave room for social events or other situations where you're going to enjoy a glass of wine with friends or on a date night or something like that, where it's like, oh man, that's not really part of my strategy. But at least now you have two slots a week to make room for that and be like, nope, I made room for that. I'm good. That's not off my plan. But if you aim to cut out any calories, drink, or food after you eat your last meal of the day, dinner, then that's going to put you in a really, really good spot to lose fat. Most people end up actually not being very routine or consistent with actually their foods and their meals leading into dinner throughout the day. And most people eat most of their calories at dinner or after dinner. That's a dangerous time for a lot of people. So if you can cut out the food after dinner, you're gonna put yourself in a really good spot to lose fat. Third one here, number 3, have a handful of veg or one fruit with every single meal. You don't have to have both, but pick one. Pick one fruit, and if it's like berries or something, pick a handful or something like that. Um, from a veg perspective, you can't go overboard on that. More veg for people. And you can in certain situations, but in general, most people could benefit from just being pretty aggressive with adding vegetables in. So a great way to start with that is just having a serving of vegetables or a fruit with every single meal that you have. Number 4, walk 5 minutes after every meal. 5 minutes is totally doable. You're probably going to sit on your phone and scroll for way more than that anyway. So, and you can still do that, but do that after you go for your 5-minute walk. So that could be to the end of the driveway and back. It could be literally just, 100 yards to the end of the block and back, whatever it is. Whatever 5 minutes of walking is for you, do that after every single meal. You could even take a call while you do that if you got to, be on your phone for whatever reason. But that 5-minute walk after every single meal, if you eat 3 times a day, if you eat 4 times a day even, but if you eat 3 times a day, that's going to be 15 minutes of extra moving right there. So that's going to help you a ton. And also it really helps from a digestive perspective too. So, after you've eaten, going for like a very low impact, slow moving kind of stroll, that can help kind of get things, going in your gut, which, typically feels pretty good as opposed to just sitting down and doing nothing. Number 5, eat with chopsticks and eat out of a small bowl or plate. So this one's a little bit more specific, and I haven't personally used this strategy myself, but I've used this with a lot of my clients, and a lot of my clients have opted for something like this, or they've used it in the past without me before they came to me. But the chopsticks can really help because what it does is it forces you to eat slow. And this is a strategy that actually more recently I'll probably use with clients that are trying to improve on how fast they're eating, because that is a common problem. And being mindful of it, that's a great strategy, is just to pay attention to it and have that kind of intention with yourself of like, I'm going to eat slower than I usually do for this meal, and I'm going to be more mindful. Um, but another tool to help is just to force yourself to eat with chopsticks, because you can only eat so fast with chopsticks. Eating out of a smaller bowl or a plate can really help too, because that will inherently, if you fill the small bowl or the plate, that will inherently control your portion size because you don't have a big dinner plate or a big bowl to fill up. So it can also give your brain the kind of the mental perception that you're having a larger meal because it's like overflowing out of the small bowl or plate that you're using. But it's kind of a two-parter because the chopsticks will help you eat slow, and then the small bowl or plate will help to just decrease your calories. Number 6, limit snacks to one per day and make them either protein, fruit, or vegetables. So, um, one snack per day, how I would kind of define that is basically anything outside of your meal times. So if you're gonna eat 3 meals per day, and that's your plan structure. So meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Outside of that, you could leave room for one snack. If you get a sweet tooth at the end of dinner, maybe a good strategy for you would be to have a fruit after dinner. If you have a large gap between lunch and dinner, you could maybe make sure that you bring a handful of carrot sticks, some celery, some cucumbers, or a fruit with you. You could have that in between lunch and dinner to tide you over until dinner if you're typically eating dinner a little bit later. But that can really help because it at least gives you a parameter with the snacks. Most people aren't actually too bad with their meals. They have room to improve them, sure. But most of the issues for a lot of the people that I work with are the foods that they're choosing to graze on or snack in between meals and after dinner. So limiting that to once per day can really, really help. Number 7, double your usual protein portions at every meal. Uh, everyone I'll cover my ass here. 99% of people are drastically undereating the adequate protein that they need. So, pretty much everybody can increase their protein and they would see amazing benefits from it as far as body composition and energy as well. Because people forget that protein is not just important for muscle growth, but it's also very, very important for staying full and maintaining your current body fat percentage, as well as energy production, because your body and your brain requires a ton of amino acids to do various functions, and the amino acids come from protein. So keeping your protein high is very important, far beyond just body composition and muscle. Um, what you can do basically is, like, to give you an example, is at the meal that you're going to double your protein, which I would just aim to do that at each meal. Get as close as you can to double it, at least more than what you normally would. But let's say, because what I have here is double, we'll assume that for argument. So you're doubling your protein. Then what you're going to do is you backfill the rest of your meal with starchy carbohydrates, greens, vegetables, and whatever else. And what I mean by backfill is you're still going to maintain a reasonable portion that you can eyeball roughly and be like, that should be appropriate based on what gets me to a comfortable level of satisfaction and doesn't make me too full. Um, and that will typically mean that those ingredients are smaller than usual because now you've doubled your protein, right? So now the portion that's taking up a lot larger size of the meal. So then the other stuff that you're going to backfill with naturally will become smaller. So it kind of, by doubling up your protein, it naturally reduces the sizes of everything else, which is really helpful to reduce portions in general. Number 8, eat the same breakfast every day. This one is very, very helpful because most people will skip breakfast. And when they skip breakfast, the reasons they skip breakfast is because it's already too overwhelming. They're thinking about getting their kids out to school. They're thinking about getting themselves to work. They maybe didn't sleep well, so they're already super stressed. And they're in kind of a chaotic environment in the first few hours of waking up. So the last thing they're thinking about is getting food into them. They're like, oh, I'll figure that out later. So if you can eat the same breakfast every day, it takes way less mental bandwidth because the decision's already been made for you. Ideally, pick something very, very simple, like a few fried eggs, scrambled eggs. You can do that in 6 minutes or less. If you pre-cook a bunch of hard-boiled eggs ahead of time, that's easy because you can just grab it from the fridge and you can even eat it in the car on the way to work. But even if you did the hard-boiled eggs fresh, that won't take you long either. There's certain cereals that you could have that are going to be decent options. You could do oatmeal, which is relatively quick, especially in the microwave. You could do Greek yogurt with some fruit. Excuse me. And that one's very, very quick because there's no preparing. You're just putting the stuff together. Protein shake mixed with water or in a smoothie with a fruit on the side. That could be great as well. These are all really, really quick breakfast options. And it's the same every single breakfast. You don't have to love it. You just have to not hate it and just know that it's going to support your goals. But if you eat the same thing every day, the objective is not to enjoy it as much as we want you to enjoy your meals. That isn't the primary goal. Secondarily, it'd be great to enjoy our meals. That's awesome. That is important. But primarily, if you're trying to lose fat, these are fat loss hacks, then the goal is to support the goal of fat loss. And this is a great way to do that. Number 9, embrace hunger. It is not a bad thing. In fact, it's actually inevitable. You're not going to run away from it if you're trying to lose fat. It will be present. And it's actually kind of a good thing. I like to say that it's not really good or bad. It just is. But depending on how you look at it, it can be kind of a good thing because we already know that it's not inevitable, but also it's a really good indicator and signal that you're actually under eating calories for the amount of food required to keep you at your current body weight, which is literally the definition of dieting and weight loss. So if you're trying to lose fat, you're trying to lose weight, if you are hungrier than normal leading into meals, and then 1 to 2, maybe even 3 hours leading into mealtime, that can be very uncomfortable for people and cause some panic. And they're like, oh my goodness, I have to eat something. And then they basically just cancel out their calorie deficit that they were in, which is required for fat loss. And really what they need to do is just take a deep breath, realize they're not going to die. They can be hungry for a couple hours. They're going to be just fine. It's just a little bit uncomfortable. And if they just embrace it and understand that, like, oh, this is actually a good signal. I remember what Tim said about this actually being a really, really good indicator that I'm probably not eating enough food to maintain my current body weight. Oh, yeah, that's literally what dieting is. So great. I'm probably going to be losing weight over the next few days. This is a good sign. I am on track. That is what this helps you with. If you're hungrier more than normal in those few hours leading into mealtime, and especially if that's quite frequent throughout the week, maybe not every meal, but most meals, that is an excellent signal that you're on track. Number 10, find and participate in things that fill your cup every single week. This one's not directly food or exercise related, although it could be if you enjoy, chefing or going out to restaurants or baking or I don't know, playing pickleball or some type of rec sports or whatever. But this is actually really important because dieting can be very stressful. And ideally, when you're working with a coach, like what I do with my clients, is I try and make it as smooth and least stressful as possible, but understanding that it is a stress to some extent. It is new. There's a lot of mental bandwidth that goes into it, especially at the start when we're learning some of these things. Changing your habits and skills and your lifestyle can be intimidating and overwhelming. And because of that, it's stressful to some extent. And one way that you can help to make this process easier is by making time for yourself. Because we also want to remember, especially myself, I take a very holistic kind of approach to fitness and health in general. And so a lot of people don't actually take enough time for themselves, especially parents, which are primarily the population that I work with. Busy parents are very focused on work, they're very focused on their family and their kids. And unfortunately, due to that, in many situations, not all, but it's unfortunate in situations when some parents aren't in a place where they can productively make time for themselves. And when they find that challenging, it's much much harder to stay consistent with a fitness plan. Specifically, weight loss can be even very very hard to stick to when you're not filling your cup and you're constantly feeling like you're running on fumes, you're spread too thin, and you never really get some time for yourself to recharge. So this is, I would actually argue, the most important one, number 10. Find and participate in things that fill your cup every single week. It's got to be consistent. Maybe it's a few minutes every single day. But if there's something that you can kind of go check out for an hour or two every single week at the very minimum, that has like extremely profound effects on everything else, how you see the world, how you see yourself. And then actually, I realize as a parent that can feel very guilty sometimes doing that. But really, actually, it helps you uh, because it helps you recharge your own personal batteries. You can then be present for your spouse. You can be present for your kids a lot better. And you can kind of bring a better version of yourself than if you're spread way too thin doing everything for everyone else and then putting yourself last every single day. And I realize that's a common trap and it's understandable. But it makes a fitness change, it makes a lifestyle change, it makes a weight loss plan much harder than it needs to be. Um, I got some bonus ones here. So those are the 10, okay? And you could pick from those what could be helpful for you, what you think could be helpful for you. And then again, the key thing is you got to be consistent with this. So write it out, put it on a piece of paper, put it on your fridge, put it on your desk at work or at home or whatever, on your mirror in the bathroom, whatever it is, and be consistent with it. Hold yourself accountable and let yourself be flexible as far as adjusting. If something's not working for whatever reason, maybe make an adjustment. Don't give up on it, but just tweak it, and that's totally allowed. Um, here's some bonus ones. So, I said eat the same breakfast every single day. That's great. You could apply that to every meal. If you can eat the same things 90% of the time, and it doesn't need to be exact, you can change up seasoning, spices, sauces, swap out a protein here and there, potatoes instead of rice, maybe get romaine instead of spinach, whatever it is. But if you can eat pretty much the same types of meals 90% of the time, that's going to help you a ton. Again, a lot of the mental bandwidth for nutrition is quite high for a lot of people because they get overwhelmed with eating healthy. And this is a great way to do it, is you just find like three meals that you really love and then just hammer those every single week and just switch up the seasoning, switch up the sauces, switch up, okay, maybe it's not extra lean ground beef. Maybe we do steak, maybe we do chicken thighs, maybe we do extra lean ground turkey, maybe we do fish. So that's a way that you could just switch out the protein, but everything else could be the same in that meal, but it could kind of feel like a different meal. And then at the same time, with in conjunction with that, why I said 90% of the time is I think leaving that 10% for 2 to 3 slots a week for what I like to call free meals. And I use this strategy with my clients as well and myself personally, where a lot of people will call this cheat meals. I don't think that's good language to use. Maybe it doesn't matter as much as I think, but I think language matters. And I think when we call them cheat meals, it kind of promotes this idea of like we're being bad when we cheat meal, we're doing something off our plan and doing something wrong. We're doing something bad. And I don't like that idea. I'd rather call them free meals because they're just something that's just not on our plan. It's not good or bad. It just is. And if anything, it'd be good because I think could be quite helpful because then you can look forward to something like, oh, yeah, on every Wednesday, I have pizza. That's something I do. Every single Wednesday, I go get the exact same pizza and I can look forward to that every single week. And it helps me stay on track with all of my other meals so that I can eat 90+% of the time pretty much the same every week. And I can stay consistent with that very easily, knowing that I have stuff to look forward to on certain days of the week. Every Wednesday, I have a free meal, and then I'll have a free meal on the weekend where I'll go get takeout, have a dinner with my parents, have a dinner with my mother in law, something like that. Another one here, prep 5 to 6 days of protein ahead of time. This is very helpful because protein is one of the, we got three different main macronutrients. We got protein, we got fat, we got carbohydrates. Typically, fats are like oils and stuff that's ready to go. Carbohydrates are relatively simple. Rice and potatoes sometimes take a little bit more time. Um, but for the most part, protein is usually the most overwhelming for people to cook. So if you can just do a full baking sheet or barbecue of chicken breast or chicken thighs or burgers or pan fry a ton of extra lean ground beef ahead of time or whatever it may be. If you can do that and then put it in the fridge and then it's ready to go and grab for the next 5 to 6 days, or maybe even you start with just prepping 2 or 3 days ahead of time, that's fine too. But regardless, you have protein ready to go. You're going to be way more likely to grab that and you'll be like, okay, I can kind of makeshift a quick meal here. That'll take 4 to 5 minutes max now that I have most of the meal cooked, or at least the hard parts cooked. Last one here. And this one's really, really helpful. I'm biased, but it really is. Hire a coach. If you outsource all of this and you just let someone else draw up the right plan for you, this can become a lot easier because then you just rely on executing. You don't have to think about the actual ins and outs and dotting your I's and crossing your T's. You can work that out, let someone else work that out. And then you just say, okay, what are the simple things that I just have to do every single day? And then know that someone else is creating the plan that works for you and then making adjustments each week based on what we see. That can be very hard to do on your own. So, um, if you're a parent and you need help with something like this, I'd be happy to put together a plan for you and help you work on this for sure. I offer free 30-minute game plan call to anyone, no pressure at all, no hard sales. I'm just here to help. So if you'd be happy to discuss something like this, please let me know. Send me a DM at Tim_MSHC on Instagram, and we can set that up for you. And we can kind of chat. But if you're someone who isn't ready to do that and you want to lose fat, but you want to work through this on your own, that's great too. And I hope this actually helps you. So take any of these tips that I talked about here and apply them into your own life. I wouldn't recommend doing all of these. They're very overwhelming if you do all of them. So I would recommend grabbing around a handful, give or take one or two. Pick a number that you're like, okay, I can do this. Write it out, be clear, make sure it's very clear, and then write it out. Put that piece of paper on your fridge, on your desk at work, at home, in your car. Maybe put it in multiple places, and that way you see it all the time in your phone, and you can remind yourself. And like I said, be patient with yourself, but allow yourself to be flexible if something's not working the way you want, and then make tweaks as you go. If you have any questions about that, I'm also happy to just help you troubleshoot with that. So if you have some questions, send me a DM as well on Instagram, and I can help you work through that. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you got some value out of that. Make sure to leave a comment on this video, especially if you're on YouTube. Leave a comment below of your favorite tip from here or your least favorite tip, maybe the one that you hate the most, the one you think I'm totally wrong about. Yeah, let me know. That would be a huge help. And even if you hate it, it'd be a huge help for the algorithm. So leave a comment either way. And subscribe to Spotify, Apple, and YouTube at Stay Peaked on all three of those platforms. Make sure you share this episode to your social media and tag at Stay Peaked and tag me at Tim_MSHC. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.